Welcome to Andorian Guitar Works backstage. I am Matt Ackerman. If you notice, there is a person missing tonight, and that is my partner in crime, Brian McCoy. He is off celebrating the fact that he just turned the big 4-0, so we have to give him that grace and allow him to lick his wounds with a big nasty hangover. Hopefully he's having a great time. But today's show is going to be absolutely fantastic. I have on the phone, waiting right now, we have a gentleman, singer-songwriter out of Nevada, who has been described, and I've met him before, so this is true, as writing songs as friendly as a handshake or as reassuring as a man hug, says Brian Sion out of the Reno Gazette-Journal. Absolutely fantastic guy on the phone here right now. Liam Kyle Cahill, thank you for being with us today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Well, it's funny. I feel like we've spent a good deal of time talking today, longer than we normally would have. Normally, when we get ready to do these shows, we just do a quick little tech run through. And speaking with you about music and about life and about just getting to where we've gotten and putting out music, it's infectious. And I found I wish we could have recorded all those conversations and just pumped them into this live stream, because we pretty much said everything we want to say. So hopefully we can do it again the second time.
Bring it right back around.
Bring it right back around. So it's been an interesting ride the past couple of years, and it sounds like you've been on a pretty interesting ride about the past 10 years or so. So would you mind just kind of speaking about when you started playing?
Yeah. You probably weren't actually even expecting this answer because it goes back even further.
All right.
I was the screamer in a metal band in 8th grade. And
I like it.
Yeah.
Everyone needs a scream. You had a dedicated screamer in a metal band?
Yeah, well, I was the screamer and the singer. I just wasn't
Okay.
very good at singing at that point in time. And I didn't play any instruments, and I've been obsessed with music for most of my life. And I've always loved singing. I've just always wanted to create music. Even at the point where, like, I remember when the Backstreet Boys first blew up, like, I was all about the Backstreet Boys, which, like, very shortly turned into, like, Korn and Disturbed and, Green Day, and turned, like, my trajectory changed pretty quickly. But very early on, I mean, I was running around just, like, singing Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, as, like, a 10, 11-year-old. And before I found my identity,
I feel that. And a lot of the radio stations at that point in time weren't really they didn't really discriminate. You could have Korn and Backstreet Boys like back together or like back to back on a certain radio station. And then it's like, if there's a groove, there's a groove. It's just when you pull up to the red light, you might turn it down a bit.
I definitely, I've been pretty eclectic throughout my life, but early on, yeah, I was in a metal band in high school, kind of a new metal band. Our first show we ever did, though, we did a Stained cover. We did Mud Shovel by Stained.
Okay.
And we did, which he actually screams in. Aaron Lewis, does some pretty awesome, early on, he did some pretty good screams. Now he does country music, which is funny.
It's true. He's played the Casino out here a couple times. Yeah.
And it's all right. I don't know. It's a little shticky to me, but
It's definitely it's a different vein.
Yeah. And then we did 2 Blink-182 covers. We did The Rock Show and What's My Age Again, and then we did one original song called Go Right, which in our very first show, which was our 8th grade graduation, the only lyrics in the entire song were "Go Right, Disneyland Left."
Okay.
Which that is like my 8th grade humor in a nutshell,
Yeah.
which I don't think I've grown up all that much.
That's because we're musicians, so
Yeah.
you can't grow up that much.
But to get to the answer you were expecting, like throughout high school, I did that band thing for a couple years. I tried to play a tiny bit of guitar in high school, but it was terrible. And but it was the summer after my senior year in high school. I saved up all summer long to buy an acoustic guitar. and it was a $300 Alvarez.
Mhm.
I knew what I wanted. I didn't want to get something too cheap, but I, didn't have a lot of money to go out and buy something real nice. So this $300 guitar was exactly what I wanted. Saved up all summer, and at the very end of the summer, my dad goes, he's like, "Hey, son, I'm really proud of you for saving your money all summer. Keep saving your money. Here's the guitar you wanted," and he just went out and bought it for me.
Isn't that nice?
It honestly is, and it stuck with me all these years. And at the same time, though, I think back and his advice was like, save your money, and I was like, I did not. I started college the next month, and I have no idea what I spent that $300 on, but I probably blew it pretty quick.
I remember when I did the whole save my money thing right before I went to college, and I had what I thought was an adequate amount put aside. Except the problem is that freshman barbecue that every university has, like, oh, welcome, this is your life for the next whatever. Or, it's almost like a look to the person to your left and the person to your right. One of them's not going to be here anymore in 6 weeks. But in reality, we went to this barbecue and then we trickled downtown and I found the one and only music store in Ellensburg, Washington. And I spent half of my savings on a 412 cab. And I think that was the moment where I realized that, well, I was absolutely invested at this point. But that's pretty cool. Similar stories with, first guitars, second guitars, and parents wanting to help out and be involved, and that's a pretty cool start.
I still have that guitar and play it regularly.
The Alvarez,
Yeah, it's been to 4 Burning Mans with
right
me.
on.
It has been to probably half a dozen or more different countries with me. That has been my guitar. That's like always been my big travel
Yeah,
guitar. Where like ironically, because it's my cheapest guitar that I own, so I'm sort of like, in case anything happens to it, it's only my $300 guitar. But then at the same time, I'm almost at the point where I'm like, if anything happened to that guitar, I would probably be more crushed than like anything else because it was my first guitar.
yeah, and things do happen when you're traveling with the guitar, right? Like I think we were just talking earlier, and I think you might have a guitar with an injury on it right now, and I remember when I was asked to play a wedding 2,000 miles away, and I hopped on the plane with the guitar, and there was no incident on the way out there, and on the way back we were at a layover, and I just happened to be watching everything get unloaded off the plane, and I saw my guitar start to come down the little rolly belt, and no one's looking, and I'm looking at the other passengers. We're all standing up waiting to deboard, and I'm like, look, 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 I don't want to be the only one who sees this. And everyone's like, oh my god, that guitar, it's getting closer to the end, and it would boom, 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 just rolls down the tarmac. And so yeah, they get destroyed, but oh well.
Was it United?
I
Did you
Yeah,
fly
it's
United?
far enough away to not remember.
Well, I don't know if you know, but United breaks guitars.
Do they? Like on point?
There's a song called United Breaks
Are
Guitars.
you gonna play it for us?
I am not. I haven't learned it yet, but
Okay.
I think I'm gonna have to. It's a country song. I'll have to like spruce it up a little, make it a little more my
I
style.
dig it.
But yeah, it's a thing for whatever reason.
I want to talk about your style a little bit later because I want people to hear your new tune in just a few. Not quite yet. But I want to talk about your creative process because I've found, like, especially as we've got to know each other before the actual broadcast, it's interesting. I think you have an interesting story of, your job and where that took you, and you took music with you, and you've you know purchased a house, and now you're at home. You've got a lovely studio that we can see right now, and really what the last 2 years looked like for you as someone who was gigging regularly, and then, oh look, we've stopped. Tell me what you've done to get from what you were doing as a hydrogeologist, correct? And that's what you do, correct?
Ish.
Ish.
I actually recently pivoted,
Okay.
but yeah, I since we're on it, I'll just say I recently, in an attempt to try to be able to come home at night and not be working in the middle of nowhere,
Hmm.
mining was constantly putting me in rural parts of Nevada, Alaska, Utah,
Yeah.
and I just started working for a civil engineering slash construction company, and I am now a special inspector focusing on dirt work. So it's basically soil and dirt is like I now make sure that construction companies aren't cutting corners so that there's enough moisture and enough compaction of the soil so that things don't move after they start building on it.
That's important. I have that concern every time I walk around my house. Like I feel like I'm going to be 300 yards down later on. So,
But moisture content,
hmm
hydrology, dirt, geology, I mean, it's still like in the realm of things, but I did get out of mining and I hadn't mentioned that to you
no,
yet. Lots of surprises. I'm sure will come tumbling out.
you find that? Do you find that you took? Did any of that unique work like influence the songwriting? Like, do you have like
Absolutely.
science based songwriting or just experience based? Like when you're not coming home until 2 in the morning, or you end up at the bar. Thankfully, what you thought you were going to go home, or like how did the former job influence the writing?
Well, some of it was more literal. I wrote a song called Backbone when I was working the worst job I've ever had in my life in Battle Mountain, Nevada, which is approximately halfway between Reno and Salt Lake City.
Okay.
And when I was working out there, and the only thing good that came out of that job whatsoever was this song called Backbone, which was the first song I wrote on a guitar I got from Chuck Reagan. I actually purchased a guitar from him, which is also one of my prized possessions. And the opening line of the song is, "Well, my name is Liam. I'm a young man. If you count the score by age, I work in the mines to bring home the bread. It's a hard-earned wage," or something like. It's weird not singing it
Yeah.
when you're just like
Yeah.
spoken word telling lyrics. So that was like a very literal thing. Whereas I wrote a song a few years back that starts out, "Sometimes I'm a rock, yeah, sometimes I'm a wreck. I bet you can't tell by the way I hold myself, by the way." Man, speaking lyrics is weird.
It's weird the
I don't,
opposite way too. Have you gone to trivia where they tell you to guess the tune, but they say it in a weird cadence and they don't give you a melody, and you'll miss the obvious ones? So don't feel bad.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, so absolutely like the work has kind of influenced it. I mean, I wrote a song called Like a Tomb, which was a song about being stuck in the middle of nowhere, away from all the people that I loved and cared about,
hmm
and just sort of like, I like made this decision to be out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And sort of feeling disconnected as a result of it. And there's a bit of that longing throughout a lot of these songs, um, from just constantly being away from home. So it definitely influenced a lot of my songs throughout the years. And I've been writing for about 12 years now.
So we talked. We'll be a little bit out of order here a bit, but we've been writing for 12 years, and we talked, and we're going to talk about this album coming out, and sort of as a result of the pandemic, sort of as a result of just wanting to get it perfect. That we've got tunes that are new tunes for your audience that aren't new tunes for you, and you've moved on, and you're writing again. Like you've almost got two other albums ready to go.
I have two and a half other albums pretty much ready to rock and roll. Yeah, it's been an interesting thing. I started recording this record in 2017,
hmm
and due to a whole lot of stuff, certainly the pandemic being one of them, this is just it's been delayed so long. I completed the record late 2019, and I was actually starting to gear up for touring again in 2020, like going back to music full time,
hmm
because I did music full time from 2014 to 2017. And then after taking 2.5 years off, I was like, all right, I'm ready to go back. The record's done. And then I just sort of had this weird feeling that like I don't know. I don't I'm gonna like hang back just a little bit, and hey, I have this opportunity to go buy a house. Like maybe I like for whatever reason, almost on a whim, I decided to go buy a house. And 2 months later, the world shut down, and there was no way I could have toured. There was no way I could have gone out and really put this record out the way that I had imagined, because, frankly, up to that point, I didn't pay rent for 4 years. I told you I have this tattoo on my forearm that says "Nomad by Fate," um, and in 2016, I was touring full time, wasn't paying rent anywhere. I was just touring 20, 25 days a month, and then I'd spend a week at a friend's house or an uncle's house or whatever. Um, 2017, I went and took a job in Alaska. It was a camp job. I'd work 20 days on site, and I'd get 10 days off. And on my 10 days off, I just traveled.
Wow.
2018, I took a job in Elko. They gave me a bunch of per diem, and I lived up in a tiny room above a bar.
Okay.
And then in 2019, I went to Eureka, Nevada, and they get, it's population like 3,000 or something.
There's a Eureka,
And
Nevada, and a Eureka, California.
There is.
Okay.
And a Wairika, California.
And a Wairika, yeah.
And then in 2019, I ended up, the company gave me a little apartment, like in this tiny little town. Like, it was just prepaid. Like, I literally, and it was the same thing. I'd work 15, 20 days at a time, get a week off, and I would just go travel. Or like if I was dating someone, I'd go hang out with the person I was dating. Or I lived a really strange existence for a really long time, and I got sick of not having my own space, and so I finally decided I was going to rent a place. I started looking into rents. They were crazy, and I was like, it can't be that much more expensive to buy a house, and it wasn't. So almost on a whim, within 2 weeks of like having zero plan to buy a house, but having saved up enough money that I was going to use to pay for a publicist and to have as tour money was my initial plan. I spent all that on a down payment instead. And like, I got lucky, frankly, because I had no idea what was coming. And long story long, that was 2 years ago. And now the record is finally coming out, even though it was ready 2 years ago. I just wasn't ready, and the world wasn't ready.
Yeah, and I think, that might be one of those blessings in disguise, right? As much as we can look back at the past couple of years and say, wow, I think we can all, many of us, being sensitive to those that have suffered great loss, those of us that were able to, look within ourselves and challenge ourselves to look at those challenges, but use them as like, launching points to do something else. You fortunate to find the house, and, build yourself a studio and keep working on your art, so that now can be the right time to release it.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's the right time or not, it's coming out.
It's always the right time. So let's move us into. I'm excited to let you play a couple tunes, especially this. Are we doing it first? Follow the Stars.
Yeah, let's do
Follow the Stars. This is a video that dropped today, and we'll post the details when we post the podcast afterwards, and it will be streaming on Spotify tomorrow. So I give you Liam Kyle Cahill with "Follow the Stars."
Thank you. And just a little warning, I do drop a couple F-bombs in this song. It's the first time I've ever dropped an F-bomb in a song, but I do it in the way that Mumford & Sons says the F word. It's very, it's not vulgar.
It's appropriate.
It's just like a very matter-of-fact F word.
It's well placed.
I would like to think so, but it got me kicked out of a casino once.
Yeah, we're not kicking you out here.
All right. So here we go. This song is called "Follow the Stars." I actually wrote this when I was touring around Alaska. I don't know if I gave you that tidbit, but here we go. Well, I've been around, traveled from town to town, yet I now. Almost every night I'm alone. But every night when I turn out the lights and I look at your face on my phone, I'm reminded that life is not easy or fair. Love is not something that you can own. And so I follow the stars. They've led me this far. And there's no place you can go to hide from your insecurities. Where are you now? And why won't God allow answers to questions like how? How the fuck are we supposed to get out of this mess when our demons keep putting our faith to the test? And I'm not trying to run, but I'll admit it's not fun fighting against all the ones that you love, that you love, the ones that I love. Ho! Where are you now? And why won't God allow answers to questions like how? How the fuck are we supposed to get out of this mess when our demons keep putting our faith to the test? And I'm not trying to run, but I'll admit it's not fun fighting against all the ones that you love, that you love, the ones that I love. So I follow the stars. They've led me this far, and there's no place you can go to hide from your insecurities.
That is such an amazing tune, Liam. I was telling you, for the folks watching, when Liam and I were doing a sound check, it was the, I guess, first and a half time that I got to hear that tune, right? I got to be an initial viewer for the video that came out, and that was the first time. And he played it at sound check, and it's like, and on time 2.5 right now, it's the goosebumps. So it's such a great tune. I hope you play one more for us before we keep talking.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, good thing I had a capo on my desk. I didn't think ahead. Well, let me ask you a question. You want a rocker or... Oh, you know what? I'll do this one. I'll do Love You to Life. This is a song that maybe I'll save the rocker for the next time around.
Yeah, because I think we're going to talk a little bit about musical style after the music break. So
Sure.
cool.
And this will be definitely different enough from that last song. This is a song that I wrote as a love song to my friends. It was after one of my best friends from high school passed away, and I tried to take in the silver lining from that situation. And one of the big things that happened was that it brought me and a group of my friends a lot closer together again. And so initially we kept saying to each other, love you to death, love you to death. And our friend Heather at one point said, I want you to stop saying that. I want you to start saying love you to life. And that became our thing. And so we started saying that to each other. And I knew immediately that I was going to write a song called Love You to Life. So here's that song. Sometimes when I'm alone, I fear and I wake, yes, I truly wake, feeling so much more than life. Find those few that you can trust and just make sure they know a cup half full is always sure to overflow. I love you to life, I'm not scared of death. They may not be perfect, but my friends are the best. They stand by my side, make the heaviness light. And you know that I've never deserved you, but I love you to life. The ebb and flow of highs and lows are nothing new to me. Until further notice, let's just celebrate everything. As seconds turn to months and years, the trick to this life is you don't have to live forever, you just have to live. I love you to life, I'm not scared of death. They may not be perfect, but my friends are the best. They stand by my side, make the heaviness light. And you know that I've never deserved you, but I love you. This is the guitar solo part. I just don't really do guitar solos. That's for somebody else. I love you to life, I'm not scared of death. No, they may not be perfect, but my friends are the best. They stand by my side, make the heaviness light. You know that I've never deserved you, but I love you to life. I'm not scared of death. They may not be perfect, but my family's the best. We may start a fight, but we fight for what's right. And you know that I will always love you, but god damn it, I just don't deserve you. I love you to life.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, man.
Those are the only two songs with curse words on the record. I didn't play them back to back on purpose, but it occurred to me, we actually did radio edits of both of those songs, and my producer hates like radio edits. He hates getting rid of curse words. He's like, it's part of the music. And I was like, yeah, but if a radio station wants to play my song, I want to have it available to give to them. And so as his own little like, whatever, this is dumb, in the liner notes, like when he actually made the files, he called it the Follow the Stars fuckless version. and then he called this the Love You to Life godless version, because I say goddamn at the end of the song. And the irony is that the way that the FCC regulates the word goddamn, they cut out God,
Right.
not damn.
Noticing that,
which I always thought was funny.
Yeah, because if you say them separately out of context, you just can't blend them together.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was driving around with my 13-year-old the other day, and she's taken an interest in The Offspring, which is fantastic to me. But she'd never heard Bad Habit, and so I was like, "You want to hear a tune?" And when we got to that one section that we all know, she looked at me and said, "Excuse me." But no, that tune is fantastic, Liam. When I was reading through your website, there was a note by, I don't know if it was in the autobiography section or in the press section, but that your music is deeply meaningful, yet not necessarily like literally relatable. So like whether you've experienced this or like even if you haven't, it translates, and I'm probably doing a really bad job of describing something that honestly all music should do. But like on a personal level, when I first heard that tune, I thought it told a different story than the one that you just, outlined of when you wrote the tune. And of course, like that was the lens that I saw it through, the loss of a family member. And then while I was listening to you play it right there, I was thinking about, friends that I've lost, and it's absolutely like something that I would have playing in a montage, or in a video tribute.
Yeah.
It's incredibly powerful. I think you have a real gift there because it doesn't just give the story away, but it's right there. So,
Thank you.
are these two songs? So you have this album, Dirt on a Diamond. What is the release date for Dirt on a Diamond, and are both these tunes on that?
Yeah, both songs are on it. Follow the Stars is track 3 and Love You to Life is track 4. Love You to Life is actually the only song that got repeated on the record from the November EP that I put out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all part of the same release. I just was very, very determined to release this on vinyl. And in order to do so, you got to keep it to 40 to 44 minutes max. And so I ended up cutting it down to 41 or 42 minutes. And I was sort of like, I don't want to say that like, oh, that's what was, whatever was left over, like the fat is what went on the EP. But I was looking for the most cohesive songs to fit on the record. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, the songs that got left off were very cohesive in and of themselves.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, both of those songs are indeed on the record. And that second song I played, Love You to Life, is out now. Like, you don't have to wait 2 more weeks. Or in the case of Follow the Stars, it'll be out tomorrow. Right. So anyone listening tonight, you have to go on YouTube, and then you can find it. But starting tomorrow, June 15th, it'll be on Spotify and Apple Music and everywhere else.
And where can people go to order the vinyl if they want the vinyl in addition? Because I know that we can support our artists by hitting up Spotify, but honestly, like buying the actual physical product is really how we can help musicians.
Yeah, I'm just an independent guy. I mean, this is the vinyl.
So I'll shoot you an email.
Yeah, I mean, it's just on my website.
Okay.
I'm pretty darn proud of these. I mean, they're like, it's kind of a blue and white swirl. And the artwork was done by a South Lake Tahoe artist named Phyllis Schaefer. I realize I got the little light on there. Yeah. But like just really, really cool artwork. And I don't know, I'm just super proud of it. And yeah, it's just on my website. It's liamkylecahill.com. You can find me on Instagram at Liam Kyle Cahill. If you look up Liam Kyle Cahill on Facebook, there's only 2 people on all of Facebook with that name, and I'm both of them.
I noticed that. I was like, did he change his picture? Oh, no, that's the page, and that's the person. And thankfully, right. I feel grateful to have relationships with both of your personas. So, So I want to talk a little bit about the art. Now I don't necessarily know, and you could tell me if it's the same artist who has done the work on all of the artwork. But okay, but I really dig it, and I would encourage people to go to your website and take a look at the little squares of album artwork over the past few albums because like they're clever. Like it's simple, but it's really clever. I really like the four leaf clover with the guitar picks.
Oh yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about like your process when you actually went through the art for the album?
So at that point in time, I was only using these green brain
Okay.
picks, and my it was a guy named Derek Armstrong, and actually the girl I wrote "Follow the Stars" about, he was her best friend, and he had the idea because I would always stick my guitar pick like this in my
Yep.
guitar, and he noticed that, so he did the lines for the guitar and then did four of those guitar picks as like a four leaf clover, and I always used green ones. Funny enough, I now use a slightly thicker pick. I went from the 60s to the, oh no wait, now I use a 60. That was a 53,
Mm-hmm.
which is a pretty thin pick,
Yeah.
and I just started using thicker picks, so now I use purple ones. Not because I like purple more than green, but just because I like the size.
That's cool.
But yeah, it was. I mean, it was just one of those things where somebody else had an idea, and I was like, "That's awesome! I love it."
When I first saw that album cover, and this is probably just me like overthinking things, and anyone who knows me personally knows that that's what I do best. But like it being a four leaf clover, but honestly, the way it's depicted on the album cover almost kind of uses negative space as if it's just a regular clover, but you can make it a four leaf clover depending on like how you're looking at it, and that it is kind of bound together by the guitar. So like this is what another dimension of music, So
Yeah, it was definitely a fun abstract design. I was super stoked on it when I first saw it. Um, and I had no idea what that album cover was going to be like. I, I remember talking to Derek and I was like, let's not put my dumb face on this one. Like, that's happened on other records. Everybody does that. And I've done that other time. I did that one more time since. So my face is on two of my five album
hmm
covers. Um, and I prefer not to do that if I can help it, but I don't know, in certain circumstances, if you don't think of anything clever or have something really cool to fit in for that design or whatever, it's like, well, in place of anything else, here's my face.
yeah,
Here's me holding a
yeah,
guitar.
we haven't seen that before, but it's okay.
Yeah, at least I wasn't standing on a train track.
You know that I do photography too, right? Like this is the big no-no.
I actually did do a photo session with on a train track once, and I think I never used any of those photos because like I realized afterwards I was like, this is so cheesy, and I don't even like, I don't know, I just didn't like it.
Yeah,
It
and
was like
then
one of like a few places we shot at, and I was like, no train track photos.
yeah, and it really sends. I mean, I get it that we're probably going to offend 15 people who hear this and say I like train track photos, but yeah, and then you hear about you know if you don't hear the, it's surprising how stealthy trains are, and if you don't actually know if they're decommissioned tracks, you're asking for trouble. But that's a whole other thing.
Sure. Well, and it's just overdone, and it's
Yeah.
it's cliche, and it's a little cheesy at this point, and I don't know. It's not like I've ever been a train hopper or anything.
Oh,
So,
I had that question. If you had ever hopped a train, scratch that off.
well,
Well, now you know what you have to do tomorrow.
no, I got work
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Okay.
No, no trains. Not tomorrow.
So, you said something to me earlier that really did surprise me, and that was that you. Well, I guess we opened this with you being a screamer in a metal band, but that you have these rock and punk and punk roots that don't necessarily translate. That someone might not know if they didn't talk with you. So tell me about the rock and roll side of Liam, the punk.
I mean, I I just got back from the Flogging Molly cruise a couple months ago, and it's my second time going, and that is like, I mean, it feels like home to me. It's a nonstop 4 night, 5 day punk rock cruise, and it's just basically a festival on a boat. And anytime there's not other bands playing or bands I really want to see playing, I'm in the hallway playing or in the elevator playing or I had somebody, and this is true, and he might be watching. It was actually a group of 3 people that they were trying to find their friend on my floor and they didn't know what room it was. And so they knocked on my door and I opened up and they're like, "Oh, sorry, wrong room." And I was like, "You're not in the wrong room. You guys want to hear a song?" I was like tuning up my guitar to go out and play in the stairwell, and they were like, sure." And they came back over. I ended up playing like 5 songs for them, and by the end of that, they said that that was like the most memorable single experience of the entire cruise for them. And now like we sort of have this cool bond that like they weren't expecting anything like that, and to get they were getting bombarded with music the whole time, but an intimate show, me and them, just like me sitting on my bunk bed and playing them a few songs. It just, it felt really great for me. It felt really great for them. That has nothing to do with my punk rock roots except for where that happened.
No, that's okay.
But,
No, this is a conversation. Let dive in.
yeah, I've always been really eclectic, and the first piece of music I ever owned was actually a cassette tape of Green Day's Dookie, and that record probably turned me into like the person that I am now. Where my whole life I want something drivey and fast, and you can tell in a lot of my songs they tend to be drivey and fast. I don't play punk music, and I can't even say that I'm a folk punk guy, but like I'm also generally way louder than most singer-songwriters.
Sure. Thrawn 2140 says that was us. Great time. So they are watching.
Oh, that's awesome.
Heck yeah. Yeah, no, I know with the setup we're doing right now, Liam can't see the comments. So as they come in and are applicable to what he's talking about, I'll absolutely read them. Make comments if you want, and I'll read them out. And if you have questions for him, I'll ask him questions too.
Jeff actually, he sent me he commented or sent me a message today and said, how he really, really wished he could be at the release show, and he lives in San Diego. And so, just, I don't know. It's so cool to like, the whole reason why I play music is to connect with people. And when I get the opportunity to genuinely connect with somebody, it really makes me feel like my art like mattered and really like was a positive force in the world, which is all I really am trying to do.
That's a very real thing, and through my personal journey, that's something that I had struggled with, because when I was not, for me, it was playing with a band, right? You have this first interaction with the people you're playing with, and then there's the feedback loop, and you're connecting with people when you're on stage and you're putting something out and it's coming back to you, and then you reprocess the energy and put it back out. There's this whole magic that happens as a performing musician in an ensemble, and it's not something that I found playing as a solo artist. So for me, past 2 years, and how do I keep creating and connecting, right? Because it wasn't just creating, because I can make a book, I can record and I can record and I can record, and that's great for me. But how do I use this to connect, and I think that's a huge part of it. So you mentioned to me that sometimes you hear the heavy guitar parts, you hear the drums, you hear the bass, you hear those more rock bands. Is there something coming down the pike where you have where you might have a concept album where you maybe pull out the Telecaster and
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
and put some heavy bass and drums behind it.
Well, there's one song on this record that is particularly rockin' and
Okay,
electric, and I'll play you the acoustic version of
cool.
it, and you'll figure out pretty quickly that like that song was never going to be an acoustic song.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, absolutely. I One of my best friends in the world is a guy named Andrew David Weber who lives in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Andrew was actually the backing band for most of this record. He was the drummer for every song. He was the bass player in some of the songs. He was the electric guitar player in some of the songs. He was the piano and keyboard player in some of the songs. He was the banjo player. He was the mandolin player. He was the cello player. Um, there's probably more. Like it was wild the amount of things that he plays 22 instruments.
Wow.
Um,
Not at once.
Not that I've seen at once, but he's one of the most incredible people I've ever met. But not only is he a great instrumentalist, he's literally one of the best lyricists and one of the best vocalists I've ever seen in my life. And I met him on tour. I was opening for his band in San Francisco. And I'm coming around to your question about the full band thing
All
because it's
good.
with
All
him.
good. Keep going.
So this is how my brain works. It's really big loops.
I appreciate it because I'm following you and I'm forgetting that we're off track because I'm with you. And I think the other people are too. So let's go.
So I met Andrew. Andrew is the was the well is well they're on a hiatus at the moment, but the drummer for a Celtic punk band called Whiskey of the Damned, sort of very Flogging Molly-esque band. And I opened for his band in San Francisco and just immediately hit it off with these guys and became friends with them on Facebook and was like, oh, yeah, if you ever come to the Midwest, let us know. And I was like, oh, yeah, totally. If you guys ever come back to the West Coast, let me know. And 6 months later, Andrew's like, hey, I'm doing a solo tour coming through. Like, can you hook me up with some gigs? I booked 3 or 4 gigs and I played them with him. I was like, hey, I'll jump on. We'll do them together. It'll be great. Um, and it just like solidified our friendship. That was in 2015,
Okay.
and since then we've just become really good friends. He is one of the best songwriters I've ever seen in my life. I've written about 70 songs. He's written like 700 songs,
Wow.
and and they're all just so insanely good. And so he and I started writing a record last year where his pandemic, it was early 2021. He had a whole bunch of shows get canceled because Omicron was coming around, and he just had this big hole in his schedule. And I was like, dude, come out. Like, I've got a spare bedroom. It's literally, that's the bed.
Right there.
Um, and
It's
I was like,
not
live in my
coincidental that the spare bedroom is the studio, right? You stay here and you can write.
Well, I mean, that was very convenient for him for sure. And so he came out and he stayed for 17 or 18 days, which we both learned was probably a tad too long. And when you don't get to have intimate relations with a person, 17 day or 18 days straight can be like a really long time. So anyways, we ended up writing 4 or 5 songs together, and then he wrote another 4 or 5 songs while I was off away at work. But the songs we started writing together, I mean, just like a combination of a lot of stuff, but we wrote some really rockin' stuff. And a year later, just in March of this last year, he came back and we wrote 4 more songs. And so we're nearly done writing a record that is also pretty eclectic, but there's some pretty punky, driving, rocky songs. And especially with him in the band, it's like I literally came to him and I was like, Andrew, like, I want to write more punk stuff. I love songs that you're gonna laugh. People listening, they're gonna be like, what? I like the drummer to be like, like I write music that's 4 on the floor with a kick, like very Mumford and Sons.
Sure.
Boom, 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 boom. The music that I listen to is 4 on the snare, pop, 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 pop. You know, and I'm like, I told Andrew, I was like, I keep asking him and other drummers, hey, please just do that snare pop thing for me. And they're always like, you accent the completely wrong beat to do that. Like, I can't do that the way you write songs.
Right.
And I was like, Andrew, how do I write a song that does that? And we ended up coming up with this riff that was like and that was it. I was like, oh, we're able to do the pop, 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 pop. And I was like, yeah, that's what I wanted.
Yeah, that brings up like two thoughts, you know, like one time. So I've got one singer songwriter friend of mine that when the first time he wrote down or he recorded an album, you know, all the drums that he put down with the drum machine. And he came to me, like, I listened to it and I was like, this is really different. And it's not bad. It's just really different. You don't hear things like that. And he's like, well, it's because I'm a guitar player putting down drum parts. No drummer would ever play it like this. But there's an interesting thing that happens there. Like, even if you don't necessarily take it all the way to production that way, you've literally put down all the parts the way you as the writer hear it. And then you either leave it that way or you hand it off to the next guy to figure out, okay, but how do we finesse that to make it, you know, whatever. And then I had another thing that you made me think of, and I've forgotten it now. But no, that's a cool groove.
Well, and I'll say that is exactly what happens to me with all of these songs. Is that every song that I've released, up until these new songs that I've been writing with Andrew, pretty much, actually everything I've ever written has just been me and an acoustic guitar. And then I go into the studio and I have these vague ideas of what I want it to sound like, but it's more like, hey, I like the way you play electric guitar. Like, I like the way you do your thing. Will you do your thing on my song? And I don't necessarily, it's not like I'm telling them what notes to play, but I'm like, you know, these songs kind of just take on their own life, and they frankly sometimes surprise me. I've had a few songs come about that I was like, wow, that, you know, that ended up being more country than I expected it to sound, or that ended up rocking a little harder than I expected it to rock. And it just depends.
Well, and that's true musicianship. I mean, and that goes to, that really speaks to the level of the level of trust that's in that relationship, like musician to musician. You know, like think of it as a significant other. You know, like you're not going to know what they do exactly every day from minute to minute, but you know that there's this partner that you want to bring into your life because you get them and you like what they're doing, and they compliment you. And then whatever happens on a daily basis, right? So it's like bringing in this person. You're not telling them what to write. You just know that they're going to bring something to the table, and then you're going to organically create this thing together. You know?
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah,
I dig it. Very cool.
Yeah.
I don't want to forget to bring up Bedell guitars before I ask you to play some more music. I don't have a lot to ask you about them, but I'm curious because you have an agreement with them. You're sponsored by them. You have a couple of their instruments. Tell us about this guitar company from Bend, Oregon.
Yeah, so I'm contractually obligated to wave this in front of this.
Contractually obligated.
Obligated to anything, but no, they just. So, have you heard of Breedlove Guitars?
Yeah.
Bedell is the parent company of Breedlove Guitars.
Okay.
Or at least Bedell bought out Breedlove. I'm sure somebody is screaming at their screen because technically that's not. It is sort of. It's true now. It was not originally true.
Sure.
Kim Breedlove broke off from Taylor Guitars and came out with Breedlove Guitars. And then in about 2010, he sold it to a guy named Tom Bedell. And it's pretty random that I'm sponsored by this guitar company. They make very high-end guitars, or at least they certainly do now. Mm-hmm. Prior to them buying Breedlove, they also tried to have $300, $500, $700 guitars as, entry level market guitars. And they, as a smaller company, were having a harder time breaking into that market. When they bought out Breedlove, they were like, Breedlove already has that name recognition. So Bedell completely switched gears, and the cheapest guitar, I haven't looked recently, but the cheapest guitar they were selling 5-6 years ago when I started on with them was $1,800. And they go 1,800 to like 20,000.
Okay.
So like this is like a very high-end guitar company, right? And you as a luthier, I'm sure, would get a kick out of it. They do a lot of really cool stuff and make, in my opinion, fantastic instruments. And how I came by them is so hilariously random. My high school sweetheart, a girl named Jessie, her mom was Tom Bedell's personal assistant in Bend, Oregon. And I was on tour, staying at their house, and she was like, "Oh, you should come by, take a tour of the factory." Like, I was like, "Heck yes, I would love that." And I went in there like with my own agenda a little bit, and I was just like, "Hey," I was talking with Sammy, his daughter. I think his daughter, 99% sure. And I was like, "Oh man, these are great." Blah blah. So Sammy, what do I got to do to get a sponsorship? Like, what do I like? Do you guys do sponsorships? Is that a thing? Oh yeah, blah blah. I was like, so what do I got to do to get in? And she's like, she's like, well, do you have one? I was like, not yet. And she's like, well. She's like, usually we like listen to your music, and at that point I'd already played her a couple of songs, and we had just kind of been hanging out, and I was doing my usual, charming, just trying to like, get everyone in the world to like me thing that musicians try to do. And
I don't know what you're talking about.
And anyways, and so at that point she'd heard a little bit of my music. I said, Sammy, what do I got to do? And she's like, well, you got to have a guitar. And I was like, what do I got to do? She's like, I tell you what. She's like, pick anything you want. I'll give it to you half off. And I was like, I was on tour and I was broke and I was like, I really don't want to spend that much money right now. I was really hoping for something free, if I'm being honest. But I was like, this is a really good opportunity. I don't want to look this gift horse in the mouth. I'm going to make it happen. And so I actually picked the cheapest guitar they had, which was that $1,800 one. Got it for $900. And they put me on their website. I did several, like, I used it as like a publicity thing. And eventually I had the opportunity. I went back, got a second guitar, because the guitar I picked was a maple guitar first. And I like booty. Like, I really like that, big bass sound in my face. And I wasn't getting that with maple guitar.
Sure.
It very much has its place, and I like it with a full band mix. It's a fantastic guitar to play. When I'm by myself, it lacks some of the bigness, the rich, thick, low end. And so I ended up going back and picking up this, which is a mahogany back inside guitar, and six spruce top, and this thing is just gem through and through. And also, I mean, like, look at the burst on it is relatively unique too.
It is. It's like a linear burst. At least that's how I'm seeing it. Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool and really unique.
It is.
And this was the last year they were making this burst. They now have, in my opinion, a less interesting burst. Nothing wrong with it. Like, it's a very subtle, like, burst on the outside is what they're doing. But I don't know. If I had one of those two, I wouldn't be upset about it. But man, I just love this guitar. Love how it sounds. Love how it plays. And it's I don't know. And it was just dumb luck. I mean, it was right place, right time. Just I happened to know the right person. And
there's a lot of, I mean, we call it luck, or right place at the right time, but it's also knowing that, that you're always on. You know, you're always networking, you're always having important conversations, and you're always taking risks and putting yourself out there. And quite honestly, if you don't ask, you know, it's never, you don't have something or an opportunity without saying, here's an opportunity. I'm interested. How do I make it happen? Right? The answer might not be something that you can do, but you sure as hell aren't going to land in that ballpark without asking the question. So, you know.
Well, as a side note, you know, they give me, I basically can get a guitar from them at cost, is kind of what I have worked out with them. And that includes pre-loved guitars and Weber mandolins, which are super high-end mandolins.
I don't know if my hands are small enough to play a mandolin, but
mine are small enough, and they still are so tiny they're weird to play.
Yeah. Well, hey, I am very interested in, because we are coming up on an hour here. I want to hear a couple more tunes, if that's cool with you.
Absolutely.
You were mentioning a rock tune that, or the other one off the track that I think is that what we're playing, or what do you have in mind?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
A rock tune as opposed to what?
No, I thought no. I thought that there was sort of a contrasting, you know, like the rockier one that was on this new album that you wanted to feature, or maybe I have it wrong.
No, absolutely. Rocky rock. So, we were talking about rock roots earlier. I don't write a lot of stuff that is inherently punk rock. This is the closest thing to a rock song I've ever written. And called Heartbreak.
All right.
Come
That was awesome. Thank you. So I am actually getting some comments that we are having a technical issue over on, I think it might actually be Instagram right now. So you're doing great. But I think at this point, probably what we ought to do is, it's abrupt, but if there's anything that we want to cover, if there's anything that you want to say before we move on, and close out for the evening, I wanted to give you an opportunity, and I wanted to thank you again for being on here, because this has been a fantastic evening, and I hope we can do this again sometime, and like I hope everyone goes out and listens to the drop on Spotify tomorrow, because it's just fantastic.
Thank you very much. I just want to say thank you to you. It's always a pleasure, and it's always it's such a cool thing. Again, my hope with music is to just be able to connect with people. And I remember meeting you at my sister's wedding.
It seems like a lifetime ago now, doesn't it?
It does, pre-COVID times. And we got to talk a little bit at that wedding, and I knew that you were in music, and it was like, oh, let's be Facebook friends. Oh yeah, definitely. And you never know, like, it's true. Like, you absolutely have no idea where anything could go, or who does what, or who's into what. I just want to say thank you for reaching out, 2.5, almost 3 years later, for caring enough and enjoying what I do, and wanting to associate yourself with me and what I do. That really means the world to me, because I just love this more than anything, and I like anyone, I want my art to be heard. I want people to hear it, and I always appreciate the opportunity. And I just want to thank you so much for reaching out and having me on.
No, you are more than welcome, and that goes both ways. You never know who's listening. You never know who you're talking to, and you never know what the next step is. And we were talking briefly 3 years ago. I was at a big crossroads in my life 3 years ago, and I didn't see that, this career change. I didn't know what I was going to be doing with this. There was no plan, but I definitely knew that you were a person that I wanted to keep in touch with. And good timing too, because we didn't know that all of our friends were going to be virtual. So it was good to it was just good to have another friend.
Yeah.
But yeah, my whole thing with Andorian Guitar Works and this podcast is really to meet the guitar players, meet musicians where they are on their journey, and help them take the next step, and talk with people that are doing it, and talk with people that are starting it, and try to take that that big world of musicians and just make it a little bit closer, a little bit smaller, a little bit closer, and people like you are an integral part in that. So thank you for being on the show, and I hope we can do it again sometime.
I hope so. It was a pleasure.
Cool. Well, I'm going to let you sign off, and I'll be in touch.
I appreciate it. Thanks,
all
everyone.
Right. Take care.
Next time.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Liam Kyle Cahill, and I am so thrilled that he was able to meet us, and I hope that our tech issues didn't scare you away. Again, his most recent video is out on YouTube right now, and go check out Spotify tomorrow. What is tomorrow? Tomorrow is June 15th, right? So Wednesday, June 15th, that new track will be on Spotify. As for what's next with Andorian Guitar Works, immediately Saturday, June 25th, if you're in the Olympia area, come out to the Steamboat Community Festival. I'll have a booth there. We'll have guitars out there. We'll be talking podcast. We'll be talking lessons. We'll be talking building guitars, right? Because maybe I don't want to talk about that yet. But there's a lot of cool stuff happening, and I hope you can come down and just say hi if you want. We'll have hats and all the swag for sale, and if you want a beer, there's a bar down the way. But come hang out, and I'll be making those announcements online pretty soon. And other than that, fret less, rock more.